Okay, natural selection. So let's go over these questions. Male guppies are found in areas with predators or without predators are more colorful than the ones found in locations with large predator populations. So in other words, these fish, when there's not a lot of predators, things trying to eat them, they are way more colorful. When they're in places where there are things that eat them, they are less colorful. A population of adult guppies originating from an area with a large number of predators, where they're not colorful, is transferred to an area nearby with few predators to where the fish are more colorful. So we took these less colorful fish from this area and we put them in a new area with more colorful fish. What's going to happen? Which is likely to happen over a few generations? Would the mortality rate, that's the death rate, of guppies increase? Well, we're putting them in a place with less predators. So would the death rate go up if you put them in a place with less predators? No. Offspring will stop competing for resources. They're not going to suddenly stop just because some non-colorful fish moved in to the neighborhood. There will be an increase in mutations in the offspring. No, that's not how mutations work. Mutations don't happen more just because new people moved in. They happen randomly, regardless of how many people there are. There will be an increase in the number of colorful guppies. Well, yeah, if we take these non-colorful fish from this area and we put them in a place where there's colorful fish, there's probably going to be some mating going on, right? And so they're probably going to pass on their colorful genes, and now all the babies that have colors are going to live because there's not very many predators. So yeah, there will be more color. All the ones that used to be not colored will probably start to get some color. All right, which result is most likely to occur to the beetle population due to predation over time? This one, you can just look at the picture. So which one of these beetles on the left here do you think is going to get eaten more often? The light ones or the dark ones? The dark ones. Why? Well, the bird is eating a dark one, but why is the bird eating more dark ones than light ones? I mean, it's camouflage, right? Like they don't blend in as well. They stick out. It's like a polar bear in the snow. You can't see it, right? But then you put like any other animal and you can see it, right? So if you don't blend in, you stick out like a sore thumb, you're going to get noticed more. And when I say noticed, I mean noticed by predators, right? So which result is most likely to occur to the beetle population? The number of light-colored beetles in the population will increase. Well, yeah, that's true for sure. Why is that going to go up? Well, because they're going to live longer and they're going to breed more and they're going to have more light-colored babies. And those babies are going to blend in. And then they'll grow up longer and they'll have more babies of their own. All right. Which statement does not accurately describe natural selection? So remember, you have to know what natural selection is. It just means thumbs up to good traits. If you have good traits, you'll live longer, you'll reproduce more and pass on those good traits. And thumbs down to bad traits, you'll die sooner, you won't pass on those traits as much. And those traits will eventually weed themselves out. Individual organisms' fur turns white during the winter to camouflage them in the snow. That's one organism that is turning white during the winter, but then during the summer it goes back to being dark. So maybe, let's keep going. B, the genetic composition of a population changes from one generation to the next. C, more advantageous traits become more common in populations. D, beneficial and useful traits are inherited generation after generation. Excuse me. So which one of these is not true? Good traits get passed on, bad traits don't. Anybody have a thought? Which one does not sound like good traits are getting passed on? Correct, it is A. Very good, Daniel. So why is A not describing natural selection? Because remember, natural selection means that you're going to die sooner and be unable to pass on your traits. So A doesn't talk about that at all. It just talks about how it blends in better during the winter. Now, that is a trait that's good. That is a good thing, but that doesn't mean that that's natural selection. That's the good trait that happened as a result of natural selection. Natural selection itself is B, C, and D, is described by B, C, and D, which I won't read again because I don't want to talk you to death. All right, we are getting there, just a few more. Okay, so Darwin went to the Galapagos Islands. He saw these different bird species. He noticed that, hey, these birds, they all look kind of similar, but their beak sizes and shapes are different. What's the best explanation for the different types of beaks in finches? So first of all, these birds are on different islands. So this is a bird on one island, and then the birds on the other island look like this, and the birds on another island look like this, and another island look like that. So why would their beaks be different shapes and sizes? By the way, all four of these birds started off as one species of birds that all look the same. So, but over time, they changed. They each like went to different islands, and over time became suited to each specific island. What do birds do with their beaks? They eat, right? So why would their beaks be different shapes? Different food. So let's see. A says each species of finch was brought to the islands by explorers over a course of several decades. No, there's no way to know that. Even if some birds were brought over on accident or even on purpose, that doesn't really explain why this is happening. The finches are capable of adjusting their beak type depending on what predators are hunting them. No, you can't just adjust your beak. You can't just change the size and shape of your beak like at will, right? See, the type of beak on each individual finch depends on what mutations that finch receives during reproduction. Mutations can change parts about you, but it's not like I have four brothers and sisters and we all have different size and shape beaks, right? They're not that common. Mutations aren't that common. They don't happen all the time like that. Natural selection caused each species of finch to have the type of beak best suited for survival in its environment. Yes, that is it. D. Okay. So you're going to notice a pattern with all the answers to these questions. It's all going to be about being better suited to their environment. Basically, just living long enough to reproduce more. So these are two mods to keep you from having to read the question. Do you guys know what the Industrial Revolution was? Remember that from history? Okay. So um, the Industrial Revolution was a time. I'm not going to explain this too much because I don't want to bore the crap out of you. My point is that back in in the around 1900, a lot of factories using coal opened up, and they were burning a lot of fossil fuels and coal, and all the pollution made these light-colored trees turn dark. That's how thick the air was with pollution. It made light-colored trees turn dark from all the soot and ash in the air. Now, before the Industrial Revolution, this moth was the dominant trait. This is the same moth, by the way. These two moths are the same species. Before the Industrial Revolution, the moth looked like this. After, it looked like this. Why? Because these moths, they sit on trees. When the trees were lighter colored, these guys blended in more, and you couldn't see them as well. But after the trees got darker colored, these moths blended in more, and they lived longer and did better. So what type of natural selection is that? Well, there's different kinds of natural selection, but I'm not going to go into detail about all of them. All I need you to know is that when you have two traits and natural selection favors one over the other, that's called directional, and this is directional. So we have two opposite traits. We have light and dark. Nature is favoring one over the other. It's not favoring both. It's not favoring neither. It's favoring one over there, because nature can favor the light and not the dark, or the dark and not the light, or both or neither. When it favors both, that's a different kind. When it favors neither, that's a different kind. When it favors one over the other, that's directional. I'm not going to talk about the other two. I just want you to know that this is directional, one over the other. So that's B, directional selection, because one trait is favored over the other. We'll talk about the other kinds later. Okay. What would the natural selection graph for black bear size during the periods between ice ages look like? Well, let's see. Fossil records indicate that the size of black bears increased between ice ages. So black bears got bigger over time. So we have the solid line, shows you the size, the number of black bears and their size before the ice age and after. The dotted line is after, the solid line is before. So the size is on this axis here. So as you go left to right, it goes from small to big. So in other words, what we're looking for is a graph that has black bears before. The before line should be, which is a solid line, should be further to the left because they were smaller. And the after line, the dotted one, should be further to the right because they were larger. So which graph, A, B, C, or D, has the solid line, the before line, further to the left, which is smaller, and the dotted line further to the right, which is larger? A. Yep, it's A. Okay, so this is going to be similar to the one that's right above that. Scientists graph changes in oyster shell color over time. So this is a change in oyster shell color over time. We have light oyster shells and we have dark oyster shells. And the red line is before an event happened, and the blue line is after an event happened. Okay? So before, the shell color was in the middle, it wasn't light or dark. Most organisms had the medium color. Very few had the light, very few had the dark, most had the medium. After, most organisms had either light or dark, and very few had the medium. So we went from most of them being medium to almost none being medium, and most being either light or dark. Remember how I told you that there's different types of natural selection? They can favor neither or both. Well, in this type, they're favoring both extremes, both ends of the extreme, light and dark. But anyway, what explanation best fits the data found in this graph? So these are some long answer choices. And we only have a couple minutes left, so we don't have time to read and go over each and every single one. But I'm going to tell you which one is the right answer and why, and then we're going to end. Okay. The correct answer to this one is B. Let me tell you why. Because what B is describing is a situation where it's beneficial to be either light or dark, but not somewhere in between. What B says is oysters with light colored shells could blend into the rocks in the shallows of a river. And while dark colored oysters would blend into the shadows. So in that situation, it's good to be either light or dark, not somewhere in between. Because if you're somewhere in between, you don't blend into the shadows and you also don't blend in with the rocks. You stick out like a sore thumb either way. So it's not good to be medium. It's good to be one or the other. All right. And that's it.